is one of our PK quizzes, so no books on this. You may have to work your brains a little bit after the break, but this is asking you to remember things that you read. So remember, read it all the way through first. There may be a hint in one of the questions in one of the other questions, or there may not. Okay, so when you're done with that, bring it up. Just bring it over here.
Welcome back, everyone.
Done with the quiz. We have our Reading Center report, as usual, which I got this morning. A couple of people have read notes, which are not good. So again, we're past midterm. It's this point in the semester where people are starting to say, oh, I wish we were still on break, I don't want to come back, I gotta get back up to speed. But what's gonna happen is, and it's always kind of surprising, you think, oh, we have a whole half of the semester left to go, but then suddenly it's gonna be almost over. And if you are one of these people who is showing, a lot of zeros here, you're, especially this person, you're gonna very quickly realize that you're not passing, okay? So you need to get down there, and if you are one of these people that has read stuff, or even if you're not, most people are in pretty good shape as far as hours. This person needs to get some more hours in. This is how many points you're supposed to have, so, I would say, yeah, these two people are in trouble with points. So get down there, get with your Reading Center instructor. Again, I can't do anything about this. I did note these on the grade sheets, but I didn't say anything other than that you need to get down there and talk to them, okay? So again, come look at this during the break just to double check it. Even if you think, yeah, I'm fine, check to make sure that they think you're fine. Don't just assume that they have the information that you do. Okay, so the next thing I know everybody is, I hope, is concerned about are the midterm grade reports. So you guys did a midterm evaluation, which I handed back to you, and this is my midterm evaluation. You did your own midterm evaluation of yourself, and everybody got credit for that if they did it. So now you need to kind of check that against reality, okay, which is this. So there were a couple of people who are having trouble. If you, as you know, I'll try to do this without showing this person's name. As you know, because you saw these once before, it says if you have problem areas, they're highlighted in yellow. So there are several levels of this. If you don't have any yellow marks, you're in pretty good shape. That's not to mean you can, slack off for the rest of the semester. But I'm not seeing that there's a danger of you not passing this part of the class at this point. But of course, if you stop turning stuff in, then you will not pass. So some people just have a yellow, somewhere on here I flagged if people at this point have 3 absences, you need to know that one more absence is all you have for the whole remaining of the semester. I also flagged anybody who had less than full credit on the second journal check. There are a couple of people who have a 0 for both the journal checks, which is a real problem at this point, okay? Then, so there are some people who just have yellow flags. Other people have this note, okay? Make an appointment this week, okay? And I left my appointment sheet pasted up on my door. I thought I was being so smart pasting it up on the door. So at the break, I will go get my appointment sheet, okay? And the people who have this note need to make an appointment to come see me sometime this week, okay? I find that these people, I really do need to talk to you because, you know, we have to see what your options are from here on in. And I find if I make an appointment with you, rather than just say come during office hours, then people do tend to come. Sometimes they don't. There's really good appointments and they don't come. Okay, so again, if you have any questions on this as far as, I know I did this and you don't have a grade for me on it, or you have the wrong grade, come and talk to me during the break. Okay, because again, one of the reasons I give you this is to have you help me proofread my records. So if I have something that's different from what you have, bring me the paper and we can see, you know, fix it. Okay, let's see, what's something else I'm going to say about this. Oh, so if you want to figure your grade, remember, this is the interesting thing about this is, I call it a midterm grade report, but there's no midterm grade on it, because I want you to take the responsibility of figuring that yourself, just so you know that you always can. Anytime between now and the end of the semester, if you want to know how you're doing in the class, and you come and ask me, how am I doing, I'm going to say, get this out and figure your grade, okay? You can do it yourself. I want people to understand that they have the power to figure this. So again, what you're doing is you're adding up all of these things and dividing by the number that we've done so far. Again, a couple of people have redos in various places, so that means that you have a pink sheet, or otherwise, we'll talk about the midterm redos. This means that you just didn't turn it in, I just didn't get it from you, okay? So you can't turn that one in, but if you have a redo, you can still get credit for that if you turn it in on time, okay? So add this group up and divide by the number of the classes completed, which at this point is 5. Then you have to add all of these up. So I didn't do this yet, but the number here would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So at this point, this is going to be divided by 20. Okay, and then get that number. Then add number 1, number 2, and number 3, and number 4, if you have a grade there, and divide that by 4. And that would be your grade in the class at this point. Okay? Does that make sense? So add these all up and average them out. If you need help with it, I can help you with it. But it's pretty much just adding, averaging, and then adding those grades. Okay, so now, the next thing, so does anyone have any questions in general on this? Not just, I think I did this. Okay, so come and tell me if you have something that's wrong on there. Usually what it is when I'm doing it, I just have, like, I've moved up a line and put somebody else's grade there. Okay, the next issue is the midterm. And there were a number of people who didn't quite get what was going on in the midterm. But if you'll notice, if you are one of those people, this is what the grades look like. Some people just, I didn't give them a grade for the third part yet, okay? And the reason for that is, remember that in this class, it's a little bit different from some of your other classes in that you can say, oh, well, I didn't get a good grade on the midterm, so I can make it up on the final. The way I do this is you have to have a passing grade on all the major parts of the class, and the midterm is one of those parts. And again, one of the reasons I do this, I realize that, like I said, this is pretty much not that much different from the UP writing exercises. Okay, so why does she count this so heavily? It's partly because you guys are trying to prepare you for onto other classes, and it's partly because I want you to recognize the importance of a midterm exam and have the experience of taking the full 2-hour, sit-down formal exam. So that's why I do it. But because I have it that way, I can't just give you a non-passing grade on the midterm, because then I'd have to drop you from the class, because the way I have this, you have to pass the midterm. So some people are going to be still working on it, okay? However, you'll notice, and please notice if you didn't already, if it says redo here, that's all it says. In other words, I didn't put pink sheets on these, okay? Partly because there were quite a number of them, and partly because you have to do it. So I didn't want people to say, have that deadline, and then if you don't do it by that deadline, I won't accept it. So you have to redo it, but you need to do it soon. You don't want to just wait until the end of the semester. But in other words, you can turn it back in any time. I didn't put a deadline. I didn't put a pink sheet deadline. Okay? So go to the Reading Center or the English Center. Again, I realize that the Reading Center has fewer people than the English Center. There are some people over in the English Center who can also help you with this, or come to my office. Okay, we are going to talk about it a little bit today. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, so if you have a failing grade in any of the 7 major sections, you will not pass. Even though, and this is why I started doing this, because what happened, it's funny because I had a teacher who just started here this semester, and every time these new teachers come and I say, you know what, you've got to be really tough with students, and they say, oh no, I'm gonna be real open. And sure enough, she emailed me, she said, I have a whole bunch of people who didn't show up for the midterm. And I said, well, I told you to tell me that they had to do it. I said, otherwise, this is what happens. Students look at these grades and they say, oh, no, I'm doing fine. So if I get a 0 on the midterm, that's okay. So they just don't take it. And I said, no, you have to learn that, yeah, you have to do everything. You can't pick and choose what you're going to do. You can't say, oh, I think I'm doing okay, so I'll just skip that. Because then what happens is, say you do get sick, you do have an emergency at the end, then it's going to become a real problem. So yes, you do have to do it. Okay, but I do want, and especially people who have trouble with it, need to pay attention, because I am going to go over it a little bit today. I made some notes on people's things. What we want to think about is going forward to our lesson for today, which is moving from topics to main ideas. Because the problem is that a lot of people, when they were faced with that one question about the topic, a lot of people wrote down this for the topic. Okay, which is not a topic, and that's where we are right now, is this, the difference between this and this. So this is what you did on the midterm, and this is what we're moving to today. But they're related, and we have to know both of those before we can go on to the next step. Okay, so let's just look at this. This is somebody's paper who isn't here. Interestingly enough, the person who isn't here, it also happens to be one of the people that did the best job on this. So it's a good thing that we have their paper to look at, okay? You'll notice that, well, this person didn't pick up the reversal transition. I went through and marked that. The trick about this was that there were several reversal transitions, and a lot of people got hung up on this one, okay? So something we're going to add to the list of things you're going to be doing on your weekly readings is many people did notice a lot of transitions here. There was the however. This is also a transition that we haven't really talked about. It's called a cause-effect transition. This is the result of something, okay? But we're not concerned about that one for looking to see if it's switching the paragraph around. Then you went into, and a lot of people picked up on this, whether they actually put the years down or not, that the list here was one of these chronological lists, right? 1821, 1846, 1858, 1862, 1863. Okay, so there was a list of years, and a lot of people, like I say, even if they didn't do the years, they picked up that this was moving forward. Okay, but this was tricky because people got hung up on this discussion of the fact that at one time it was celebrated predominantly in Mexico. And what does this word mean? That was it. People did some really good work on working through that word. What does predominantly mean? Look at your answers.
Throughout.
Okay, throughout is a good guess. I took a lot of good guesses. What people tried to do, and I was glad to see it, was you picked up on the pre, right? Which means what? What does pre mean as a prefix?
Before?
Before, okay. But that isn't really what that means here. So I could see, and that was what I wanted to see, was that people were trying to work that meaning of pre meaning before into that, and it didn't quite work. What does this root mean? Dominate. You know that word is, if you dominate something, what do you do? Anybody know what a dominatrix is? You've probably heard that word. What do you do when you dominate something?
You take over?
You take over, okay? So, yeah, so if we say whatever's going on over here today, you know, Russia is trying to dominate the Crimea and the Ukraine, okay? They're trying to, in other words, they're trying to be the number one guy over there, okay? So that's where this comes in. It pre also has a sense of this, of being first, okay? So, and that has the sense of, it kind of leads to this. The first one, the main one, the most powerful one, which ties in with the dominant. This really just means mostly, mainly. Predominantly means mainly, okay? Okay, it's also celebrated in U.S. cities with a large Mexican population. Recently, it's being publicized even more heavily, okay? As a result, more people now celebrate it without knowing why. So, did the rest of this paragraph go on to talk about the different ways we celebrate this? Okay, so here's what we're going to look at. This is actually not only the reversal transition, a reversal transition, it's also known as the key reversal transition. Okay, so this is a reversal transition, but it's not the one that turns the entire paragraph. This one is. People don't know why we celebrate it, but they should, because why? paragraph saying we should know this story. It's inspiring. It's rousing. It's interesting. Okay? That's what this is saying. Okay? So, if you read this part carefully, the story behind the holiday, however, is a rousing one and is inspiring enough that it deserves to be told. The story is as follows. Do you see anything that indicates a list there? What indicates the list?
As follows, and then, yeah.
Good. This is a little different from the types, I'm pushing you, I'm testing you, okay? This is a little different from the types of words we've seen before that indicate a list, that say there are a number of reasons we should know what this holiday is. But this is pretty clear here that following this, Ruki pointed out this colon, following this colon, the story is as follows. Here's what this paragraph's going to tell you. It's the story of why we celebrate this. Okay? Yeah, so the paragraph kind of really starts here. And I was glad to see that a lot of people understood that and they didn't mention this business about the marketing. They just said, Cinco de Mayo is celebrated because. Okay. But this is quite a lot of information here, right? This is the history of Mexico from 1821 to 1863. So there's like almost 50 years of history, okay, that you had to wade through. But remember our task of looking for things that are repeated or referred to. What do you see repeated or referred to here? I'm going to just use, yes. What's the first thing that you saw repeated or referred to? Okay.
Mexican?
Just out here doing this. Hold on just a
Um, you're saying you see the word Mexican a lot.
What?
You see the word Mexican a lot.
Okay. What else? Yeah. This. Cinco de Mayo. It's the title, okay? On a lot of people who didn't understand what was going on, I highlighted that and said, you should have asked some questions here. Okay, yeah, Cinco de Mayo, Mexico, okay. Cinco de Mayo, the holiday, right? That refers to Cinco de Mayo. Okay, then there's kind of a period where it doesn't, there's this point, it's not here, and Mark is right, that Mexico is here, okay? Then, what's this? The 5th of May.
Cinco de Mayo.
That's that, you kind of had to be bilingual here. Yeah, Cinco de Mayo is the 5th of May. The Battle of Puebla on the 5th of May. This is the part that most people missed. The people that are doing it over again, this is where you got into trouble, okay? You had all this stuff, but you never did tell me. You said, here's the story behind the holiday. You said Mexico had independence from Spain, but then they got into trouble with France, and then they did this, and then they did this. And I wrote at the bottom of your paper, you never did tell me what happened on the 5th of May. You're still not telling me why we celebrate May 5th, okay? So we've got Cinco de Mayo, the holiday, Cinco de Mayo, and then starting down here, the 5th of May, okay, the Mexican victory in the Battle of Puebla. Is that a reference to the 5th of May?
No.
It isn't?
Or,
The Battle of Puebla on the 5th of May. The Mexican victory in the Battle of Puebla. So this is
Yeah.
another reference
Yeah, it
to
is.
Cinco de Mayo. Okay? Yeah, that's what people missed, was that picking up not just the 5th of May or Cinco de Mayo itself, but the reference, the Puebla defeat. There's another reference, okay? The story of the Cinco de Mayo conquest, okay? And you'll also notice that this word kind of runs through. It's the story of the conquest, the miraculous victory. All of those things are references to Cinco de Mayo. Does that make sense? Yeah. This is, like I say, this was your midterm, so this was a little bit more complex than the ones you did reading. But you can do this. I know you can do this, okay? Okay, so the topic, the thing that is repeated throughout, and here's where the trick came in. Phrase the topic of the passage, and here was your clue, one or two things, okay? The topic, then I said the topic is not just Cinco de Mayo, that's too broad. So that kind of stopped people, right? They said, oh shoot, I thought it was Cinco de Mayo. So what else is referred to? If it's not Cinco de Mayo itself,
The history,
what?
it's like history.
Okay, what about this? Let's look back at our key thing here. The story behind the holiday, however. Remember one of our first lessons that we've had here is that very often the sentence that contains the reversal transition is the topic sentence. Okay? It's this, the story. The story, okay? This is the story. Here it is again, the story. The story. Does that make sense? Okay, and then this. So the topic isn't Cinco de Mayo, it's the story behind it, or why we celebrate. Does that make sense to people? Yeah. Once you see it, it's when you think, oh yeah, of course. Of course I see it. Okay, what's another thing about this? And if you think back to the Rosa Parks one that we did, I mentioned when we looked that one over that a number of people got confused about that because you were taught, as I was, that Rosa Parks was the first one to give up her seat, right? And you're kind of reading that whole story, but this is an example where prior knowledge can get in your way. Prior knowledge can get in the way of what you're reading, okay? What prior knowledge here got in some people's way?
I knew that she was. I actually thought she was the
Okay,
first.
yeah, we all thought she was. What about this one? What is usually, when it says, most people celebrate Cinco de Mayo without quite knowing why. Why do people celebrate Cinco de Mayo?
Because everyone else is doing it.
But, well, that too, but what do people usually say? What is it?
Independence.
Okay, yeah. The Cinco de
honor?
Mayo celebrates Mexican
Is it-
independence.
Is it about honoring Mexico too?
Well, it's about Mexican independence, okay? But when is Mexican Independence Day? Anybody know? September 16th. Yeah, this date, September 16th, is the day Mexico got its independence from France. The day Mexico got its independence from Spain, which a number of people said was the reason we celebrate Cinco de Mayo, was way back here, okay? So again, what's happening is people have been told, I had one little gal in the class one time when we read this, and she came up and she said, you know, my grandmother was always telling us, you're celebrating the wrong day.
Yeah.
You know, yeah. So, and she said, now I understand what she means.
Because really in Mexico, we don't celebrate that.
Exactly,
Or, like my parents and everybody, see everybody celebrating here in America, and
Right.
they're like, they have the wrong idea, they
Yeah.
don't know prior knowledge, that's not a celebration.
I know, yeah, I know, it's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting, but it's an American holiday, and it's
There's
fun. and
advertisement and money and.
Yeah, and like I said,
And-
partly the thing is because you know, all the grocery stores have this stuff, and it's like, yeah, we gotta go buy stuff for it. Yeah, but actually, what happened, if that wasn't the day the French were thrown out, which is the real Independence Day, what happened on the 5th of May? That's what kind of gets in people's way. Well, Mexico got its independence. No, that's not what happened. What actually happened on the 5th of May? That's where you got to get into this. France invaded the Gulf of Mexico, but what happened to those French soldiers on the 5th of May?
Did they socialize with them or play with them? No?
Let's read it, okay? In 1862, France invaded the Gulf of Mexico and marched toward Mexico City, okay? So the French came over from here, they landed here, and they started marching inland, right? That's a long way to come. I mean, that's pretty serious back in those days. If you think of what the boats were like, that's a pretty serious issue for them to do that, okay?
Did the French show up because the Mexicans owed them money?
Yes, that's up here, okay? Led by General Ignacio Zaragoza Seguin, a small, poorly armed band of Mexican soldiers defeated a well-outfitted French army of more than 6,500 people. This is your core here, right? It was this unbelievable victory. It was a miracle that these very few little people could defeat such a big army, okay? The story of this battle is evoked, and what does this mean?
Taken away?
Taken out?
Evoked.
Embedded?
Well,
Like removed? Removed?
no, it's not, you're thinking revoked, not revoked, evoked.
Does it mean change of mind or?
This is, yeah, this person also did a good job. Evoked, did we do VOC, or is that in the 302? This is why I don't like to do 302 and 322 in the same semester. Do we have that vocabulary root?
Does evoke, can it be like recalled too?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, this is call or voice. It recalls, calls it up, okay? So this defeat of the French is evoked in the celebration known as Cinco de Mayo. Okay, this was your main thing here, okay? But after that, what happened? So the French emperor said, whoa, if they can defeat 6,500 people, I better send 30,000 more. Can you imagine in those little wooden boats sending all those people from France? Okay, But in the end, who won? The Mexicans, yeah. And here's a thing, this is what a lot of people miss. Many historians insist that the story of Cinco de Mayo was what provoked the rest of this. The Mexicans said, okay, now they've sent 30,000 more people, but if we did it once, we can do it again. And sure enough, they did. And that's the belief. Okay. Do you see that now? Do you see how that's put together? And this was another good thing. Remember we said to look for parts? Okay. Here was one part, here was another part, and this person at first, it was interesting, he at first drew all the way down here. So this is what I like to see, is that you're kind of backing up. This is just the introduction, we don't really have to worry about that, except some people did start out by saying, many people celebrate Cinco de Mayo without knowing why. That was enough for this. You didn't need to get into the marketing and advertising. Here's the history. And then he came back and made another mark here, okay? So this is up to the Battle of Puebla, and then this is what happened. So that was, and several people did that. They said, okay, I see these parts. Does that make sense? So this is the kind of thing I want to do. People who have to do it over again, I want you to think in terms of. And yeah, as long as something, people, I gave a lot of credit to people if they even mentioned this. Cinco de Mayo is celebrated both here in the US and in Mexico. Over the years, it's become a regular or common holiday. People celebrate it more. Okay, probably maybe too much stuff up here, but this is where they got started. The most interesting thing is that they don't even know why they celebrate it. Okay. This isn't exactly right. This was Spain, okay? There were some civil wars. France used that as an excuse to conquer Mexico. It sent these people. They were defeated in the Battle of Puebla on May 5th. Now this person is kind of going into Spanglish here, but that's all right. Usually I make you stay in English, but that's okay. We know what they're saying. The French sent more troops, Mexico was conquered. Okay, they say this was what was missing from most people. They say that the Battle of Cinco de Mayo was what inspired the Mexicans to keep on fighting for their freedom against the French. That's what was missing. Is the idea that yes, this isn't the day they got the independence, but it was the day of this miraculous battle. Okay? Yeah, so this was good. Maybe not perfect. I mean, like I say, they could have cut off this. This was Spain instead of France. But, okay? So yeah, here's the thing about this though, that I always ask people. What would you have done if I had given you this on the day you walked in here? If I had handed you this and said, okay, read this and tell me what it says on the day you walked into this class, what would you do? You would have turned around and walked out and said, sorry, I'm in the wrong class, right? Okay, so look what, this is the point. Look what you, just the fact that you can even approach this and say, okay, yeah, this looks scary. Just visually, it's dense. There's a whole lot of dates. You're thinking, oh my God, this is history. I can't deal with this, you know. But you did it. You sat there and did it. That's my point. You made a stab at it, and you made an effort to understand it because you know how. That's the important thing about this. Okay. So, and that's why I'm allowing people to get back in there and look at it again. Okay. Okay, so on Thursday, we're going to do another one. Not that whole thing, but another one of our weekly reading and writing exercises. And that is going to be something about, what? What's your topic that's going to be on Thursday?
Sports.
Sports, something about sports. Okay, so remember, these are PK topics in the sense that they're giving you some prior knowledge about what you're going to read on Thursday. Something about sports. And again, I always want to, I don't just want to say write about sports to everybody, because some people aren't interested. So if you're not interested in sports, write about a hobby or other pastime. What does this word mean? What's a pastime?
Something to occupy.
Something to pass the time. Yeah, that's where it comes from. What do you do for your leisure? If you do have time, or where other people might be going to a baseball game, what would you rather do? How would you pass that time? Okay? Okay, so let me check my